Storm Kieron has blown its way through. Luckily, by the looks of things, hasn't been too bad for us. I was just checking the plants really to make sure that they are looking good. The stakes have done their job, the plants are still upright, because these are quite tall plants, these purple sprouting broccoli. You can see where the wind has been blowing, how it's moved these hoops over, but actually...
We've been very lucky, haven't we, when looking at other people across the country has been devastating, hasn't it?
Yeah, we really have.
I feel so sorry for those people.
And, you know, if you've suffered the effects from Storm Kieron here in the UK, I hope it's not too bad for you and you can get things back on track. 3 or 4 weeks ago, one of the other named storms that came through, and we did suffer with that one big time, but thankfully not so much now. But it is November, so in today's video we shall be giving you our top tips for the month of November. Our first tip for November is to cut down your autumn fruiting raspberries. You can see that ours are finished now, there is no more fruit on them. Unlike the summer ones, they're much easier. All you do is cut them right down to the base. And then what we shall do is just pull any of the weeds that are around here, because the ground will essentially be clear for us to be able to do that. And then we'll just put a layer of compost over the top so that they can be fed next year, next spring actually, when they spring back into growth. And while we're here with the soft fruit, this is a good time of the year to be taking hardwood cuttings. And if you're not quite sure how to do that, we shall put a video out over the next few weeks on exactly how you can go about doing this. Now, this is just the beginning of the window. You could leave these as late as February if you wanted before you did it. But I prefer to get this job out of the way with, so that we can prep the ground so these get off to a really good start next spring. And actually, while we're talking about soft fruits, Mrs. W, it's the time of the year to cut back your blackberry canes. Blackberries are really quite good for taking other cuttings from, either to give to other people or to make more plants for yourselves. And you can see how that's where the blackberry bush is, and these stems have grown all the way down here over the summer months, but actually when they touch the ground they actually start to form roots. So for us this was totally by accident. We hadn't planned to do this, but it's known as layering. And when the tip of the plant actually touches the soil, it gets its roots down. And what it does mean is that we can get an extra plant. So what I'm going to do is to cut that off there like that, and then we're going to put that into a pot with some compost, and leave that to grow on all through next year. And then when we get to this time next year, then it'll be time to plant that out and we'll have a brand new plant.
Only I don't think it'll be us who plants it anyway, because we've already got a slight triffid of a blackberry bush that grows so much anyhow and is so prolific that hopefully one of our children may like it in their garden.
I heard through the comments that you've been quite poorly, Ken. And I just wanted to say I hope that you and Mrs. J are well on the road to recovery now. And also Mandy, I heard from you for the first time in a couple of weeks and you were saying that you'd been poorly too. So, as you said in your comment, I do hope that you managed to get down to your allotment and managed to get working on that again. Now, our next tip is to tend the strawberry bed. You can see ours has really grown.
It's gone a bit mad, hasn't it?
And that's because of all the runners, and so it looks like we've got many strawberries. But now's the time of year to start to sort that out. This is one that we planted up a little earlier. You can see the roots are actually coming out of the bottom of this.
I took quite a few of the runner cuttings earlier, it's sort of September time, and just popped them straight into pots like that, and they've done really well.
And if you remember, earlier on in the year, I showed you how to plant up some runners. Here is the pot. You can see that's growing really quite well. And to see just how well it is growing, the roots are actually in the ground.
Oh dear.
So,
pull hard.
And indeed, some of the other runners that have come there, this was the one I planted, but another one has decided to
hop on board.
Hop on board. So we know they have roots, so we can cut it away from the mother plant. You can see the roots are really quite good, and we actually took more than enough cuttings for what we want for next year. Not because I need to repopulate this, but we actually plan to grow some strawberries in containers earlier next year in the polytunnel, whereby hopefully we can get an earlier crop, and then these ones can then take over outside so that we can extend the time in which we can enjoy those lovely juicy strawberries. But for now, the plants do need a tidy up. And I know it looks a bit daunting at first because you think, oh God, where do I start? What I tend to do is I know that I haven't planted any on the edge, so they can immediately come out. And then just cut back so that the runners are off. And if you didn't take any of your cuttings earlier on in the season, there you go. There is a cutting. All you need to do is just get a pot and pot that up.
They don't actually have to be stored inside either over winter. They'll be fine just outside in pots, won't they?
Yeah. You can see that by this time of the year, they do have their roots on them. Now, this is the time of year also, if you've just bought some bare root, soft fruit bushes, this is a good time of the year to plant them. Clearly, if the ground is waterlogged, or if it's frozen, not a good time to do it. But if it's a day like today where we've been filming, absolutely ideal. They can go into the ground now, and they will get their roots down and establish themselves ready to grow away next spring. We have one more tips of the month to go for you in December, but actually myself and Mrs. W are actually talking, and we're thinking next year maybe not to do the tips for the month or the jobs for the month. There's a whole playlist on our video where they can be found. However, this is as much your channel as it is ours, and we really appreciate you watching our channel and supporting it and all the lovely comments that you get from it. So before we take that final decision, just let us know down in the comments, would you like to see the top tips still remain there? Do you find them useful because they provide a trigger point and remind you that, oh yes, I need to be doing that this month? So do let us know, and then depending on the response we get will help us form our decision. Now, as for sowing, if you didn't manage to sow your broad beans toward the latter part of October, as we did, these next couple of weeks in November is a great time to be sowing your broad beans. You can see that ours have actually already began to germinate. And the idea of sowing them now and overwintering them is that you get a slightly earlier crop the following year. So if you sow them in February, you're probably going to get a late July, early August harvest. If you sow them now, then we generally, well, our harvest is normally finished toward the end of June, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
So you don't have to do it like this. You can sow them next year in February and still get a lovely harvest. But we have a limited amount of space, and we always follow our broad beans with sprouts, which are normally sown toward the end of May, and then we plant them out into the ground toward the end of June. So that really works for us by getting these off to an early start, getting the harvest, twisting them out of the ground, and then in go the Brussels sprouts. And I'm really pleased, Mrs. W, to see this germination, because, you know, in previous years it's been a bit hit and miss. But, as you know, we saved our own seed. And it really does seem to have worked. Our germination success has been much better. Just going back to a comment that I saw in the last video, Mandy, I know you said to me about how you've been saving your seed for some time, and we wanted to start off with things that were relatively easy, so we've saved really the bean seeds and pea seeds, so the pulses. I know you said it's actually quite easy to save your seeds for onions and for leeks, and that is something that we want to do, and we shall look to do that next year and replant some of our onion bulbs to see if we can actually get them to flower and get our own onion seed.
Interesting.
And then my last tip for you for the month of November is enjoy your harvests. If, like us, you've been growing things so that you can eat over the autumn and winter period, just like the summer months, it's an absolute abundance. We've got Brussels sprouts that are ready now, and they'll take you all the way through the rest of this month, through December, into January, and indeed further if you don't use them over that Christmas period. But don't forget, Brussels sprouts are not just for Christmas. They're a wonderful vegetable to eat at any time. We've got our purple sprouting broccoli. It's not ready for harvest yet, but it's coming on nicely, and Rudolph should come into its own hopefully sometime in December. We've still got cabbages, cauliflowers,
Leeks.
Yeah, leeks, parsnips. There's still much to eat.
And carrots. You mustn't forget the carrots.
Yes, mustn't forget the carrots, Mrs. W. But I just want to bring you back as we head toward the end of this video to the celeriac. I had a question from Claire, and she said, is it time to harvest the celeriac now? Yes, it is. You can harvest this any time from now. If you just look down here, you can see that our celery, which is still looking really good, we haven't had a frost yet here in our garden in Norfolk, so that's still going, but the frost is coming. It will arrive sometime over the next 2 weeks, and those plants will suffer. However, the great thing about the celeriac is that they don't. It needs to be a particularly hard frost for these not to survive. We've been harvesting celeriac in previous years all the way through to the following February, March, haven't we?
Yes, yeah.
If you live in a really cold climate where you're getting, you know, really harsh frost, then yes, by all means, take them up once you get to that point and then store them. They'll store fine in a shed. So, now comes the time to harvest, Mrs. W, and I know that you do want one.
Yes, please.
So let's try this one first. Let's twist him out of the ground.
Well, it's not a bad size after all. Not as big as we've had before, but not bad.
Ooh, and the celery smell is really,
I know.
it's quite intense. And then to use this vegetable, you just need to cut off the roots. And obviously the bulb is what you're going to be using.
You can use the leaves in cooking, but they're quite a much stronger flavour than just the traditional celery. So use sparingly is what I'm saying.
So yeah, enjoy your celeriac. And I've really enjoyed this year, you know, so many of you have taken up growing along with us and growing some celeriac. Some of you for the first time because you haven't grown it before. And I know Mrs. W is going to be putting something out there pretty soon, one of her recipes and how she uses the celeriac.
Yeah.
But it really has been, I've really enjoyed this. I so much have, because so many of you told me you've never grown it before. And from the comments I've heard, you've actually probably been a bit more successful than we have this year. But these are the things that happen with gardening. Not all years are the same. And, you know, in the past we've had peas that have not done so well. This year it just seems to be the celeriac that doesn't seem to have grown as large as we've had in previous years. But whether that's the variety or where it's being grown, you can see there's quite a lot of shrubbery going along here.
It's a monster jasmine and it needs cutting back again. I cut it back hard last autumn, but it just seemed to grow twice as quickly in the spring. So
Obviously enjoyed its haircut.
It likes where it is.
Having said that, it doesn't seem particularly to have affected the celery. We've had some really good celery this year, haven't we?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so glad that so many of you grew this along with us this year. Which brings me to the next thing. What are we going to do as the grow along for 2024? If you can let us know down in the comments what you would like to see us grow, and we'll feature it most weeks throughout the year, and the things that you should be doing to get that harvest, let us know down there in the comments. And basically, however many comments we get for a particular vegetable, that's the one we'll go with. So vote for your favourite vegetable and what you'd like to see us grow as a grow along next year, and we shall do that. One of the things we have done over the last week or so is to plant up our raised bed, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a future video. So I'm quite pleased to have got that done. Myself and Mrs. W have quite a lot to do. This all needs cutting back. We need to finish the raspberries and finish tidying our strawberry bed. We've got all the family coming over a bit later on today. It's young Maggie's 6th birthday. She's got a bit of a birthday party going on at the moment in Norwich, but then everybody's coming over to celebrate with her this evening. And of course, it's time for fireworks. And we shall be setting some off here in the garden later on tonight.
Weather permitting.
Weather permitting. Do have a great gardening week, won't you all? And we shall see you on the next one.